I want each of you to understand that as singers, you are very special.
Because I have found that instead of stopping a bad habit, you must replace that habit with something new that is a better, healthier habit for you.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal McDaniel, and this is The Naked Singer. Today we're going to talk about the process of singing that is really the most important. If you look at singing as being a seed, or if you look at yourself as being a seed, then what has to be done is that seed has to be cultivated. That seed has to be cared for, and that seed is part of a relationship between you and your voice, or you and another person. And so when you look at the seed as being a relationship and being a part of who you are, then what you want to do is make sure that you are cultivating that seed in the best way that you possibly can for optimal growth. Because if let's pretend like you've been given a seed that is for a really great fruit tree, and that this fruit tree is monumentally special and needed in this world. So your job is to take this unique, important seed and make sure that it grows into a tree that will produce the fruit that you need in order to supply what your purpose is in the world. And I think that that is so important for us to understand as singers, that we are given this little seed and we are given this voice that we can put out in the world. It's one of the reasons that our studio uses the hashtag Believe in Your Voice, because it is something that we have to do. And I see too many singers withdraw from fear or withdraw from criticism, most especially from criticism that goes on and judgment that goes on in their own minds. And we want to be able to fight the game that is in our mind, the voice that is in our mind that tells us that we can't, or it's not going to be good enough, or it can't be accepted. We've got to learn to turn that voice down and turn the volume up on what we know and what we believe about our own voice and that seed that we need to plant and cultivate. I want each of you to understand that as singers, you are very special. And so therefore, the voice that you have, you're the only one that has that voice, and that sound is unique to you. And it is made so that it can give something great to the world, and you are the only one that can do that. So we want to take all the distractions and all the things out of our lives that keep us from being our best singer selves. And that means that we have to chase down the best way to be able to do that. So I'm here as the head of McDaniel Music Studios, which I've been working for 26 years developing great young singers and helping them to get on their path to achieve what they want to achieve in the world. And that doesn't always mean that every one of them that has ever come through my studio has ended up being a singer and performer. A lot of them have gone on to tremendous careers in other fields, but because of the value of the thing that we started together and that their parents promoted in them, now these students are confident and they are able to achieve the things that they want and they set out to achieve for themselves. And I think that that's a wonderful process to be a part of for a student, because I firmly believe that I succeed and that the success of anyone comes from helping someone else to succeed. So I think we got to keep that in mind. So in that process, I want you to think today, as you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to give you 4 of my top singer tips in order for you to start becoming a better singer and a better performer for yourselves. But you can use this in any part of your life, in any relationship, because I firmly believe if we follow the same steps as a singer, that if we follow those same steps in life, we're going to succeed no matter what, because some of them are just absolutely transferable to life lessons. So let's start out with tip number 1. My tip number 1 that I have for my singers is that it matters what type of soil that you plant your seed in. That absolutely matters, because here in the South there is a lot of hard red clay, and hard red clay is not always the ground that every single plant can grow out of. So we have to find out by researching what seed do we have and where is the best soil to start planting that seed. Well, if we're looking for the best type of soil for the seed of a singer, that's going to start with our foundation. And that's going to start with finding how to get a good vocal foundation, a good foundation in vocal technique. So first you want to research out people that are really, really good at teaching the technical end of voice as well as the performance end of voice. I have spent 26 years working on developing the ability to teach great vocal technique and to help young singers learn how to grasp what great vocal technique is so they can keep their voice system healthy. So I know in our studio that we have good soil and we help the singer plant that seed in good soil. But I also know that there are other great teachers out there too. So you want to make sure that you find the teacher that can really explain to you the entire process of posture, why posture is important, and how it plays into the vocal instrument and the process. The second thing they need to know when you're looking for the good soil, when you're looking for this great teacher to be able to help you plant this seed, you want somebody that can explain space and thoroughly understands how the human voice works, the human singing voice, and how to create space, the yawn space that we need to sing in, and why, how it connects to posture, and why posture starts first, and then creating this space for the voice to be able to expand in. And we need somebody that can teach us how to do that. And we create space by yawning. And the third thing they need to be able to do, a great foundation for a singer and a teacher needs to be able to explain the breathing process and why low connective breathing from the hips is exactly the way you want to be able to do it. Now, I understand that our lungs are not located in our hips, but there is a process that in our studio, we call it dropping. And when we drop, then gravity pulls the air back into the lungs for us, and we're able to get outside of our breathing process and get out of the way and relax. So I know that you need someone when you're wanting to get that great foundation. Those are the steps of the foundation, and we need someone in our lives to help us be able to cultivate that and make sure that we are really grounded and rooted in this really great soil. And that's something that we work on in the studio constantly with the students that we have, because these things are really important.
our number 2 tip that we have for you is it matters how you tend your seed. It matters the work that you put into making sure that seed grows. So I'm going to break that down to you for you a little bit on how you actually tend it, because we know if we were tending a garden that we would water it, we would fertilize it, we would weed it. So we're going to break it down into terms that are related to the things that I just said. So in order to tend this little seed and make sure that your voice is growing, we said in number 1 that we want to plant it in good soil, and we talked about that. So we've got our good soil going. But now we've got to get into our practice and how to get better and better and better and better. Now, singing is way more than memorizing notes and words. It is way more than doing great riffs. It is about how you can get the instrument, which is your body, to habitually be able to do these things in the simplest, easiest, most relaxed way that you possibly can. And that takes work and it takes energy. And those things go together. Now, if we're working on singing technique, then we know that energy equals air and air equals energy. But in order to be able to have and make contact with a tremendous amount of excited energy, then we cannot just sit laid back on our laurels and think that it's just going to come pouring out. For the most part, what I notice with young singers when they first come into the studio, they have no idea what their real core voice is because they're under singing and they're not using enough energy. So we have to first make contact with that much energy, which for a lot of young students today, especially the students I'm finding, were affected by the shutdown during COVID and the isolation. And because of that, there's tremendous anxiety for them to break out of the bubble of whether they're doing anything right or wrong, or whether they are using enough energy or not. Because I'm finding that these particular young singers are very withdrawn, especially those in the middle school and high school ages. They are very underdeveloped, and they feel and they react very timid, in a very timid manner. And so this is what we need to do, is to help break them out of that fearful shell and to help them tap into their core voice and the energy they actually have to be able to sing with. So we want to talk about that a little bit, and that is going to be in how you tend it. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, are you using the right water and the right fertilizer? And what I mean by that is, in your practice, how are you doing it? What is it that you are applying? Okay, so are you recording yourself when you are in your lesson? That's step number 1 for you, the singer. You need to be audio recording. You need to be video recording. I mean, you can use one or the other, and you need to be taking notes. So you need to make sure you always have paper in your notebook where you keep your music, in order to make sure that you can make notes so you can match those things up when you're listening back to your audio or video recording. It is really important that you go back and you see and you can hear and remember what's going on. And you can also hear examples of when you're doing things in alignment with your throat open and with energized air, and when you're not, so that you know the difference between what you need to be doing and what you are doing. That's something that you need to be able to do. So recording your lesson and taking notes is probably the top thing in what I would tell you and what I would suggest when you're tending your voice outside of your voice lesson. Also, are you really taking notes? Because too many young singers in their lesson, I'm having to say, do you have a pencil? Did you just write that down? And I don't need to tell you that, because if you were in a classroom, it could be math or history or science or whatever, you would be taking notes. You would be writing down the things that are important. And if your singing is important to you, then you need to understand that there is no class that is more important to you than the one you choose for yourself, which is singing. So in that situation, why wouldn't you take notes on how to improve that part, since that's what you were born to do? If you would do it at school in a classroom, you should do it in your voice lesson. What's interesting at me is because they hold you accountable and your parents hold you accountable for those grades, you feel pressured to take those notes and make sure you do well, because the law, your parents and your teachers and your friends are all watching. But when you're doing something just for yourself, for really your own improvement and your own pace and your own journey in life, you don't do the same thing. Why in the world do you need stress and pressure in order to perform well? Why don't you just perform well because it's something that you want to do? That's a different thing, and that's a different story, and that's the way doing things like voice or a sport after school or whatever it is you're doing, that's the way you get better at it. That's the way you get better at it. Okay, so when you're practicing and you're studying, what are you learning? We quiz our students on certain things every single week when they come in and they're doing their warm-up. They get quizzed every single week on what they do. And that's really important because we want them to be able to call on certain things that we're teaching them, and that becomes second nature. So I want to say, you guys, if you are in my studio and you aren't memorizing that stuff and you aren't studying that stuff, please know that every week you get a pop quiz on it, and every week you need to know those things, and you are the one holding yourself back if you don't know them and if you haven't worked on them and if you hadn't studied them. So I'm not sure why you would want to make a 100 on a test at school, but not want to do as well for yourself. That's always an interesting little juxtaposition to me, that you don't want, because of embarrassment, to not make a 100 in class, but when you're wanting to do something for yourself, you don't find it important enough. That's a very interesting thing and a way of thinking to me. So I think that you should start pouring into yourself what you need to pour into yourself in order to make music and singing your priority. Not that school is not. It's just that you have to think about these things, because we're talking about now how to tend the garden. And this is one of the ways that we need to tend that garden of our voice. Number 3 is the big third tip is, how do you weed your garden? So weeds just spring up and they spring up and they spring up and they spring up. And it's something that we constantly have to know is going to happen. So we have to check on these things every day. And you got to make sure that you're pulling the weed out by the root and getting all the roots of the bad things out, which means that you need to replace it by doing something good, by putting that water in, by putting that fertilizer in. And then we need to deal with the weeding. And in our practice, how we weed is making sure that we're doing all the things that we learned. Because I have found that instead of stopping a bad habit, you must replace that habit with something new that is a better, healthier habit for you. So make sure that you're doing all the things and working on all the things that we work on in the lesson. So, in other words, are you practicing your posture? Are you taking photos of your posture? Are you researching exercises that you can do to help you with your posture and to strengthen those muscles and to make sure that you're staying tall and the neck is long and high and the sternum is high and the knees are released and the lower abdominals are released and the feet are firmly planted on the floor, shoulder width apart. You've got to make sure that you're doing those particular things because posture has to be practiced like everything else. Are you practicing creating space? Are you using practice sessions multiple times a day to practice holding your yawn open? So if you do an exercise of holding the yawn open for 60 seconds, you literally are going to keep yawning and yawning and yawning and yawning and yawning every single second. And you need to do that multiple times a day. Set an alarm, set in a reminder, do it in the car. Take those life moments and actually get that done because you have to be able to sing through an open throat. And if you are not practicing that open throat, then you're just going to keep doing the same things over and over again when our throat has to be opened in order to sing and to sing well, because then it's giving you take the pressure off the vocal cords. It's giving freedom to the cords to be able to vibrate in the way that they need to. There are multiple healthy issues as a singer that you get the benefits of these healthy benefits when you sing through an open throat. When your throat is open, you get more air in that way. There's just a lot of good things that happen when you open that throat. But if you're not practicing opening that throat, then it's not going to the throat isn't just going to automatically do that. So we've got to make sure that you're tending the garden of your voice by practicing opening the throat multiple times every day. That's highly important in your practice. Are you yawning, opening that throat, and holding that yawn, and then practicing speaking phrase by phrase by phrase in the yawn space? Yes, it's going to sound funny because when I do this and I'm yawning, my voice begins to sound funny. But I'm speaking in the yawn on the air. And that's the way we have to sing. When you sing, it doesn't sound that way. But when you speak, it does. So don't let that curtail your willingness to sing with an open throat, because you don't sound funny singing with it as you do when you're speaking with it. But that's the way that you know that your throat is open the entire time. And if you don't speak the words in the yawn on the air, then you're not going to sing them in the yawn on the air. And you have to make sure you can maintain that. That is really part of the tending of that vocal garden. So many of these young singers just skip over that, and not even young singers, young professionals, that, you just skip over that part. Yes, you're talented, but you really need the foundation. You really need that healthy foundation under that so that you can make sure that you lower the injury rate and you raise the level of singing that you're doing and the longevity that you're going to have singing. So you got to make sure that you're tending these things. Are you working on low connective breathing from the hips? Are you working on your breathing mechanism being as far away from the throat as possible? Because we need to get that away so that our neck and our jaw and our tongue and our space, it all can be free and loose. Again, we want the easiest, simplest, most relaxed way to be singing. And this is one of the ways that you do that, but you've got to practice taking in air with gravity and blowing the air back out freely, keeping the air in motion the whole time and making sure your back isn't locked and your knees are released. All of the things that good posture brings us, good singer's postures brings us when we're breathing through, because it all connects to one another to bring out the product of great fruit that your audience enjoys hearing. This is how it works. Are you working on keeping your feet balanced, the weight equally distributed from the heel of the foot to the ball of the foot, and keeping it grounded into the ground so that you have a firm stance for singing from? This is one of the ways we gather energy for ourselves, is to keep those feet grounded. So please make sure you are practicing that. And one of the best ways to practice that is to get yourself into the gym, doing wide squats, doing sissy squats, doing exercises that are, kettlebell swings. All of those help you to feel the grounding in your feet while you can practice your breathing doing those particular exercises. So make sure that you are in the gym, you're working on the cardio to help your pulmonary system to be able to handle your breathing, and make sure that you're building the muscle that you need in order to know what grounding is, and use the energy that you need to make all of those things happen. And we have come up, Skylar Smith and personal trainer Skylar Smith and I have come up with a class called Energize Sing. You are welcome to join us for Energize Sing. It really helps change the way a singer grounds and uses energy as they sing. It helps to get everything working together so you can see how the different exercises make you more body aware and then ground you so that you can perform to your best ability at the optimal level that you need to be singing at. We've watched this beginning to change our singers, and it's great. So if you want to join us for Energize Sing, you can comment on this podcast, or you can send a direct message to me on Instagram, either through the studio page, hashtag McDaniel, at McDaniel Music Studios, or at the Naked Singer blog, at Naked Singer blog on Instagram. You can DM me and we can send you the information on our next course of Energize Sing. So, and remember, that is ENERGI hashtag SING. So it literally is Energize Sing. So we want as many people enjoying this class with us as possible, because it actually helps as a part of this process to help you develop into being a great singer. You got to ask yourself, is everything you do in your practice nurturing your seed? Is everything you do in your practice nurturing your seed? Is it helping it grow? Are you seeing growth? Are you staying at the same level week after week after week after week? And if that's what you're doing, then the answer would be no, you're not nurturing your seed. You're not weeding your garden. You're not watering the seed. You're not fertilizing the seed. You're just hoping that week after week after week that you're going to see a difference if you just come once a week and that's all you ever do. Well, then you're going to have a fruit tree growing through weeds, and you may or may not get fruit for a long time. A long time. So if you go 52 weeks and come to a lesson and you're only working to grow your voice 52 times a year, then it's going to take you 52 times longer to get better, because you've wasted all the other time. You are worth your own effort. And if you want to see fruit that you can get paid for, then you actually have to put the work into your vocal garden. That's the way it's going to happen. You cannot take your fruit to the farmer's market and think you're going to get a big paycheck out of one apple, because that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then you're going to feel lesser and you're going to shrink. As a person, your confidence is not going to build that way. We can only build confidence through experience. And if you don't go through the journey and really take the journey to get to where you want to go, then it's just going to stay this small little thing that doesn't really produce. And then the negative voice in your head gets to say, see, I was right. But all that is proving that you can self-fulfill your own negativity. It doesn't prove that you can actually do something that can feed others in this world. And that's what we're given this gift for, so that we can feed others. I have found in my life that if I help others succeed, then I can't help but succeed myself. And I think I've said that earlier, but I'm just going to say it again, because that's what I feel like that my purpose is for, is to make sure that I help other people succeed. And if that means I help them succeed by singing something on the stage and that gives them a revelation or something, or if that means that I help somebody in the studio or through this podcast, I think that when we do things that help others succeed, that we cannot help but succeed ourselves. And so putting that work in, I think that's why that is so very important. So that you know that you're doing what you need to do and you don't look back on your life and have regrets. That's the one thing I don't want. I don't want to look back on my life and regret that I didn't do most of the things that I thought of. That's not what I want. I want to make sure that I actually see what I want and then go do the steps of the work that it takes to be able to do those things. All right, so now we are on to my tip number 4. Are you giving the seed enough light? And what I mean by light is, are you taking advantage of every opportunity that you have and that you can in order to get up and sing? There are multiple ways you can do that. You can sing at church. You can sing for nursing homes. You can sing for ladies groups. You can sing for your local Rotary. You can sing for the Lions Club. You can get involved in your local community theater, which I think is very important that we support our local community theaters. You can sing at school. You can sing at all kinds of other events that go on. There are a lot of festivals. There are a lot of farmers markets that want entertainment. There is Google. If you want to start going and doing auditions, then you need to start Googling what is around you. You need to make sure that you are putting yourself and your music out there. Now, I want to make sure though, we start out one way, and in our first auditions or our first performances, those are always the worst ones that we will ever do, but they are the most courageous, because they're the ones that we just get up there and we do our job on. And we keep improving and we keep learning and we keep growing confidence. And some of them are going to be absolutely fantastic. And then some of them are just going to be, down the tubes. And that's the way it is for everybody. But you continue to trudge on and you continue to learn and you continue to grow. And that's so important as a singer. And that's how we put our seed out in the sunlight. And you can't say that, well, you don't know where to go if you don't ask around and you don't use Google. Google is my main tool. If I am looking for something, I'm going to Google it. I'm going to look through Playbill. I'm going to look through Backstage. I'm going to Google, where all the regional paid theaters are in my area. I'm going to look at where all the community theaters are in my area. I'm going to look for those things. I'm going to look for the opportunities that are out there to do. I'm going to look and see what programs are legitimate and what programs aren't legitimate for me to get involved in. Because a lot of things, they cost you a lot of money in order to do, and you get very little back. So you want to make sure that you are investigating those things to make sure you're getting yourself involved in a real legitimate way of gaining ground and gaining training in your life. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure that you're Googling and you're researching and you're asking questions, and you're getting up and you're singing in as many places as you possibly can. And see, we're here in this little small area, or at least I am, but a lot of you that are listening are not. And so your opportunities are going to be greater than the ones even I have around here. And there are several great opportunities around here for some of our young singers. So you want to make sure that you're looking for those and that you're ready for those. And you can't be ready for those. You don't wait till you get it to get ready. You start getting ready now so you're ready when the opportunity comes. That's something else. There are also competitions out there. There are all kinds of ways that you can put your music out there and get it working for you. If you put things on the internet, please make sure that you make a great video. And I don't mean that it has to be a music video. I mean, where it has singers and dancers and bands and lights, but you want to make sure that you have a good microphone, you have good lighting, you have a good clean background, that you know how to slate, you know how to introduce yourself. You're bringing lots of energy into that when you're performing your song. That's real important that you do, because we don't want to put anything out on the internet that doesn't represent you really well. That's just something that you need to understand when you're doing those things. Now, remember that you're a performer. So performing is what you do. So being afraid of performing when it's what you do and what you want to do is something that you need to work on and to make sure that you're building confidence on. It can be intimidating to walk out in front of people. It always is. But if you don't ever put yourself up there, you won't gain the opportunity. I have always loved being in front of people. I'm not so happy about being in a crowd of people that I'm just socializing about. In fact, I was just at a family event, and my family sort of jokes about me being there, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing so well. You've stayed a while." And I'm like, "Yeah," because big social events aren't necessarily my favorite thing to do, because I'm actually very introverted. So I have to make myself get up and go and talk to people and whatnot. And so being at an event like that is different, but I love being in front of people, and I always have. So I've never been afraid of public speaking, and I've never been afraid of getting up and performing in a show or singing in front of people, because that's just what I've always loved to do. So, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, then but you want to do it, it's something that you've got to continue to search and even sometimes produce and make up your own performance opportunities. That's what I have to do from time to time. I have to produce and direct and make up my own performance opportunities. So that's something that you can think of too. Even when I was in high school, I wrote my own musical for a school project. So, there's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way for you to put yourself out in that light and put that seed up there in the light. I'm telling you, you can do this. But you must make sure that you're walking yourself down all of these 4 points that I've given you today, these 4 tips on the things that you need to do to make sure that you are becoming the greatest singer that you possibly can with no regrets. That's the thing. Week after week after week, I have to beg my singers to please practice and please know these things. As a singer, that's something that you need to do. Don't put yourself behind. Don't second guess yourself. Just start doing something. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to make sure that it waters, fertilizes, and weeds your singing garden. That's the thing. That's the thing. All right. That's what I have for you today. Those are my 4 best tips for the day for you singers. Remember, the Naked Singer is about honesty and transparency. If you have any questions or you want to know more about the singing process and how you can go forward, you can comment below. You can DM me on Instagram at Naked Singer Blog. You can DM me at the McDaniel Music Studios Instagram at McDaniel Music Studios. You can find me on Facebook and message us there at McDaniel Music. You can find us on Twitter at McDaniel Music. Well, you can find us on TikTok at The Naked Singer. You can find me on LinkedIn at The Naked Singer. So there's multiple ways for you to communicate and find out and get more information. If you want to join us, you can call us by contacting us on our website at www.mcdanielmusicstudios.com. And I think that's it. Oh, this podcast drops every single Monday. The Naked Singer podcast drops every single Monday. So make sure that you're listening. Don't forget to follow, comment, share, tag a friend. Do all the things to help us get out there further and help us succeed, because we certainly want to help you succeed. And as always, I'm Crystal McDaniel, and this is The Naked Singer.